These are the scribbled notes of some of the most prominent Nazi defendants at the Nuremberg Trials.
The Nazi hierarchy is there to answer for 10 years of plotting of the Ribbentrop, Keitel and Kaltenbrunner brand, for the Göring and Hess fanatical cruelties, for the whole program of pillage and murder.
On this episode of Along These Lines, the first in a multi-part series on the Nuremberg Notes, we examine several of these fragments gifted to a female journalist by the defense attorneys representing the accused.
Literally tons of paper were removed after each long drawn-out session of court.
This is a note written during a court session in 1946 by Hermann Göring, once Reichsmarshal of the German Reich and Commander-in-Chief of the Luftwaffe, likely addressed to his defense counsel, Dr. Otto Stahmer. Göring, referring to himself in the third person, writes the question:
do you have personal proof that Göring knew about the cremations, or is your assumption based on presumption?
He is referring to the cremations carried out in the camps. In other words, the machinery of the Holocaust itself. What makes his note striking is that crematoria were almost never mentioned openly in court by the defendants. Göring's choice to use the word cremations at all, even in a defensive question, shows how determined he was to deny any suggestion of personal knowledge.
The prisoners headed by Göring, who shields his face, arrive under guard.
Sir David Maxwell Fyfe, the British Deputy Chief Prosecutor, questions Göring on the 21st of March 1946.
And are you telling the tribunal that you, who up to 1943 were the second man in the Reich, knew nothing about concentration camps?
I did not know anything about what took place and what methods were used in the concentration camps later, when I was no longer in charge.
Fyfe fires back.
Are you telling this tribunal that a minister with your power in the Reich could remain ignorant that that was going on?
This I maintain, and the reason for this is that these things were kept secret from me. I might add that in my opinion, not even the Führer knew the extent of what was going on.
When witnesses or prosecutors referred to the extermination program, Göring frequently interrupted to deny operational involvement, claiming such actions were carried out by Himmler's SS beyond his authority. He stated when being interrogated by Maxwell Fyfe,
Himmler kept all these matters very secret. We were never given figures or any other details.
He admitted the regime's anti-Jewish policy, but continued to deny any operational knowledge of the camps, the gas chambers, or the crematoria. A few of his denials were so outlandish that the other defendants couldn't help but smirk. Sir David Maxwell Fyfe continued to press Göring on his knowledge of the final solution.
Remember, we heard from the Polish Jewish gentleman who gave evidence. He told us that so thorough were the henchmen of your friend Himmler that the women took 5 minutes extra to kill because they had to have their hair cut off in order to make mattresses. Remember that witness? Was nothing ever told to you about this accretion to German material which came from the effects of these people who were murdered?
Göring replied sharply,
No, and how can you imagine this? I was laying down the broad outlines for the German economy, and that certainly did not include the manufacture of mattresses from women's hair, or the utilization of old shoes and clothes.
No document bearing his signature ever surfaced linking him directly to the policy of extermination, a technicality he hoped would protect him. However, on the 1st of October 1946, his fate became clear.
Defendant Hermann Wilhelm Göring, on the counts of the indictment on which you have been convicted, the International Military Tribunal sentences you to death by hanging.
And by the next day, it was front-page news around the world, as shown in this 2nd of October edition of the News Chronicle, where his crimes were described as unique in their enormity. 5 months later, after receiving his sentence, Göring swallowed a cyanide capsule just hours before his scheduled execution. In one of 3 suicide notes, he wrote,
"Death by shooting I would have accepted at any time, but the Reichsmarshal of Germany cannot allow himself to be hanged."
He escaped the gallows, but the scrap of paper he wrote in the courtroom, this short defensive line about cremations, remains the distilled essence of his argument, not a denial of the extermination machine, but a calculated challenge. Prove I knew. Gustav Gilbert, the American prison psychologist who met daily with the Nuremberg defendants, recorded in his Nuremberg diary that after 3 grueling days on the witness stand, Hermann Göring confided in him about his deepest concern, how history would remember him.
The empire of Genghis Khan, the Roman Empire, and even the British Empire were not built up with due regard for principles of humanity, but they achieved greatness in their time and have won a respected place in history.
Gilbert responded to Göring's comment.
I reiterated that the world was becoming a little too sophisticated in the 20th century to regard war and murder as signs of greatness.
In that single justification, we see a man laying bare the brutal logic that helped drive the world to catastrophe. Let us know what you make of Göring in the comments. Did he understand the weight of his crimes, or was he still living inside the fantasy of power? The next note comes from Alfred Rosenberg, the Nazi Party's chief ideologue. Officially appointed as the movement's leading theorist in 1934, Rosenberg shaped much of the regime's racial doctrine. Yet even within the leadership, his work was ridiculed. Hitler dismissed his anti-Semitic book, The Myth of the 20th Century, as stuff nobody can understand, while Albert Speer described it simply as unreadable. Rosenberg's Nuremberg Note, directed to his defense counsel, Dr. Alfred Thoma, reads,
"Please rewrite page 73. The word eradicate is being used in its most radical meaning. Also page 71, utterly important, since we were in defence, not the Jews, because they ruled as of 1918. Also never spoke of an Aryan race. So this whole page is not plausible. Page 76, I didn't bother with the religious Jewry."
In 1946, as a prisoner under cross-examination, Rosenberg was reviewing his lawyer's draft defense. He wasn't disputing the crimes being presented, he was editing the language. His lawyer, Dr. Thoma, agreed to remove terms like terrible, common, and religious Jew, a small exchange that revealed Rosenberg's obsession with phrasing, and his belief that the problem lay not in what he had done, but in how he sounded. He blamed Himmler for the killings, and insisted he was only a philosopher. Gustav Gilbert found him a
bigoted philosophic dilettante who distorted history to justify aggression.
On Wednesday, the 17th of April 1946, during Rosenberg's testimony, US prosecutor Thomas J. Dodd shoved Rosenberg's own October 1941 letter to Hitler under his nose. In it, Rosenberg bragged,
"The Jews in the East were now feeling the full force of the Austrotung,
the extermination of Jewry." What followed was the single coldest moment of the exchange. Dodd pressed him.
I take it then that you agree that it does mean to wipe out or to kill off, as it is understood, and that you did use the term in speaking to Hitler.
Rosenberg replied,
Here I heard again a different translation, which again used new German words, so I cannot determine what you wanted to express in English."
Dodd snapped back.
Are you very serious in pressing this apparent inability of yours to agree with me about this word, or you are trying to kill time? Don't you know that there are plenty of people in this courtroom who speak German and who agree that that word does mean to wipe out, to extirpate?
Rosenberg's answer was ice cold.
It means to overcome.
Reporters wrote that you could have heard a pin drop. Several noted the Soviet judge, Iona Nikitchenko, leaning forward in disbelief that Rosenberg continued to debate the meaning of the word extermination. Rather than address the overwhelming evidence of mass murder, Rosenberg kept arguing over translations. The note captures his true concern. Not guilt, not regret, but language. The wording mattered more to him than the crimes.
Defense counsel wait with ill-concealed anxiety for the verdict in a trial conducted with scrupulous fairness for the rights of the defendants.
After being convicted on the 1st of October 1946, Rosenberg awaited execution. On the night before his hanging, on the 15th of October, when the Protestant chaplain approached him, he simply looked up and said,
"I don't have any need for your help."
At the gallows, he answered,
"No."
When asked if he had a final statement, and then dropped silently, the coldest exit of the entire group. Quite remarkably, Rosenberg's long missing diaries, over 400 pages from 1936 to 44, were discovered decades after the war, having been smuggled home by Nuremberg prosecutor Robert Kempner and kept privately until his death. Recovered in 2013 by the US National Archives, the diaries underline Rosenberg's monstrous lack of empathy towards human suffering, including that of the German people. The almost total destruction of Hamburg on the 31st of July and 1st of August 1943, with the loss of 40,000 lives and the displacement of over 1 million others. In his diary entry from August 4th, he described the destruction as
a chance as never before for the rediscovery of the rural, a hint from fate not to allow the creation of similar world cities in future.
The bombing appeared to him as an opportunity for the fulfillment of his warped and perverse blood and soil worldview. The idea that Germany's future depended on a pure, rural life and the rejection of modern cities.
Now it is civilization's turn to read their monstrous crimes into the record.
Murder, extermination, enslavement.
These notes reveal something unmistakable: how each of them tried to rewrite their own history until the very end. Justice Robert H. Jackson, chief prosecutor for the United States at Nuremberg, put it plainly.
These prisoners represent sinister influences that will lurk in the world long after their bodies have returned to dust. We will show them to be the living symbols of racial hatreds, terrorism, and of violence, and of the arrogance and cruelty of power.
Thank you for watching another episode of Along These Lines. As mentioned, this is part 1 of a series about the Nuremberg Notes that we have in this private collection. We're in the early stages of growing this channel, so please do like, share and subscribe. We appreciate the support.